Hey everybody, just a heads up. I was having some audio issues with my microphone. Unfortunately, the sound quality is just not very great, but it's a pretty rad episode either way. So I'm sorry you have to sit through it, but you know what? I hope you enjoy it. Now here's all about M&Ms. Yum.
They melt in your mouth, not in your hand. We're talking M&Ms. Hit it. It was 1986. The first case of mad cow disease was discovered. A Thundercats costume was $11.99. Smoking is banned on all public transportation in the U.S., and Mars launches their holidays chocolate candies for their M&Ms line. I'm your host, Jerry D., with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now joining me is a Totally Rad Christmas all-star. You'll know him as the host of the Dope Christmas Podcasts podcast, Sean Sotka. Sean, how's it going?
Great, Jerry. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing all right now that I'm talking to you.
Yeah, now you got my sweet tooth going with what we're talking about today.
Well, then, mission accomplished, yeah.
The only thing worse than that is listening to Glenn Warren's Seasons Eatings podcast. That makes you just absolutely hungry.
Oh, I know. Every single time I listen to it, I want like just a bunch of different variations of everything he's talking about. So on the cranberry one, I mean, I wanted, not only the cranberry sauce, but my wife makes like a cranberry orange breakfast bake that we have for Christmas morning, like every year. And so I wanted that. I mean, just so many things that I just, it's so mouthwatering. And so when I had, I was thinking, what could I do that really speaks to Christmas that's food, but, that won't step on anyone's toes. And I thought M&Ms, they, in the 80s, they brought back certain things and they invented certain other things, and which we'll get into in a bit. But, that just kind of latched onto it. And then, of course, my love for M&Ms.
And they melt in your mouth, not in your hand.
So they definitely melt in your mouth. Sometimes in your hand, but it depends on how
hot your hand is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
I've proven that theory wrong a few times when I was a kid.
Me too, especially in South Texas. Yeah.
Even up here in Wisconsin where it's colder, I've done that. I'm like, oh, my hand's all greasy now.
Well, they don't melt as easily. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. So, what is when I asked for people to, for volunteers to come and be on my show for M&Ms, right away you thought, I want to do that one. And so what is it about M&Ms? Like, what's your history with it, or what are your general thoughts on it?
I've always remembered having M&Ms throughout. I mean, that was like a standard snack for me. I always picked those up because obviously the milk chocolate was great. And so always growing up, I had that. And then it's always been a staple at holidays, either be Easter or Christmas. Like Christmas, you get the candy cane full of M&Ms. I would always get that in my stocking.
Yes, and us too.
And then at Easter, you get those little eggs full of M&Ms and stuff like that. I mean, it's been a staple. My mom used to bake cookies and put like a little M&Ms on top of it and all that stuff. And now even to this day, my wife will make circle pretzels. She'll put a Hershey's Hug on it, and then you get an M&M on top. It's like called like reindeer noses or something like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so those are really good. So it's just been a staple my whole life.
That's cool. Yeah, and you know what? A lot of what you said resonated with me because it was almost exactly the same. So growing up, going to the movies, we would have M&Ms, and of course in the movie theater, it's the box.
Yep.
And, so when times were a little bit harder, then sometimes we would sneak in our M&Ms, but we always had M&Ms. And then same thing in our stocking, we'd get that candy. It was like a hollow candy cane and it was full of M&Ms at the bottom, and that top was usually red. Where the Crozier part is. And then later on as we grew up, we would get with the M&M minis, the little smaller tubes. Sometimes we have those as well in our stocking. And I mean, it was always just one of those things where my aunt Rosie, my mom's sister, she's the one that would always give us M&M stuff. So it was usually like a little trinket of M&Ms, the dispensed M&Ms, or I think I had like a big M&M. I think it was the blue one when that was popular.
Yep.
And, you know, it was in the mid 90s when they ran that promotion when he came out, and still, even, even as an adult in the 2000s and 2010s, I'd still get something M&Ms, which is cool. I love M&Ms. So, I mean, you're right. They're tasty. They're chocolate. But they have that little coat of sugar on it that's blends with that semi-sweet chocolate that just makes it work, I think.
Oh yeah. It'll satisfy the sweet tooth in anybody.
Yes, exactly.
And the thing with those candy canes too, you destroy the container trying to get that little top off to get to the M&Ms too, because you can never get the whatever they taped it up with off. So I'd always twist it off, and I'd break half of the thing out, and then I got to eat the whole thing.
Yeah, oh darn. Yeah, I think what we used to do is I would just take my nail and like slice where I would find the separation.
I tried doing that, and it never worked for me.
Oh, I gotcha. Maybe I just have sharp nails. I don't know, but yeah, I would do that, and then just kind of twist off. And so now, when my kids sometimes get them, because we don't let them eat a lot of sugar, you know, they'll have some of it, and you know, I might have a handful here and there, and then I might have another handful somewhere else, and so.
Next thing you go, kids are going, what happened to all my M&Ms? Oh, you must have ate them all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You ate them all already? Oh, man. Yeah, they were always one that we had to have. So every Christmas, my mom would make the same thing, the Christmas M&M cookies, and she would put the M&Ms on top as well. So she would mix it in the batter and then have special ones on top. And then eventually, later on, when M&Ms started coming out with like the pastel colors for Easter and you know the Halloween colors, things like that, then we would use those, and so we would just make them for pretty much any holiday. And so for us, they just kind of became a holiday cookie, which I thought, you know, why not? If we have them for Christmas, you know, Christmas is great and special, but at the same time, you know, I love the M&Ms. Let's get as many as we can, and so that kind of became our thing.
Right, exactly. And you get M&Ms and trail mix and stuff like that too. You get that salty and sweet together, and just the perfect ratio is what it is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you got to have the salty, you got to have the sweet. My wife especially really digs the salty sweet combo, and I'm okay with just the sweet sometimes. But you know, but
gotta have the sweet.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're at the movie theater, you know, you have your popcorn and your M&Ms and maybe a Coke, because I always like to have my M&Ms with the Coke if I can.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something about it that it's different from like a regular chocolate bar. I mean, I love like a Hershey's bar. That's good stuff too. I love a Reese's Pieces, but for some reason the M&Ms, it's that little candy shell. It just makes it like a little bit more magical almost.
You get a little crunch, and it's not too much of a crunch like it would be like with a nut or anything like that. I mean, if you really want it, you could get the peanut M&Ms, but it's just that little bit of a crunch and a little bit of a hard candy around the milk chocolate. That's just, it makes it magical.
Yeah, I agree completely. Especially when in 86. Well, and here it kind of depends on which website you go to. I've tried deep diving into the research here, and it seems like no one can quite figure out, because not even on the M&M's official website does it have the exact date. But they introduced their holidays chocolate, which is just M&M's in red and green with little Christmas trees, or I think there was even a little candy cane on it. And so according to some, it seemed like it was 85 and some 86. And so, you know, when that came out, it was in the mid 80s. And so it made it even more special, because it was almost like it was just for Christmas. It was just that time, you know, and so it just, there was something about it. It was that scarcity, and it just, oh man, I loved it so much.
Right. Yeah. When they came out with just the red and green for the Christmas, that obviously being Christmas colors that they are, it made them more magical. And obviously, like you said, they put that little tree on, and it's just, speaks Christmas left and right.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially because at the time it had been about a decade since they had produced a red colored M&M, which I thought was really interesting.
I didn't dive that deep into it, so yeah, that's interesting. So when you first said M&Ms on there, I don't know what I was thinking of the characters they have now, like red and yellow.
Oh yeah,
but those are from the 90s. Those are from like the mid 90s. And that's the commercials that I was thinking of. But then you sent me the links to the commercials there, and I was like, oh, okay, now I remember those.
Yeah,
And those actually did okay. Those, and they just watching those brought back the feels. And like I said before too, there is a major rabbit hole just with Christmas commercials. Period. Because I went to YouTube and I said 80s Christmas commercials, and I found like 4 different videos that are at least an hour long each of just Christmas commercials, including the M&Ms. But then you get into other stuff. You get into like the Hershey's chocolate. You get into the Oreos. You get, and just some of those are just like brought me back to just sitting down watching, the specials like Charlie Brown Christmas and Garfield and all that, and seeing these commercials intertwined in there. And it's just, yeah, it gets you all the feels, especially since we had snow up here yesterday.
Well, see, that's amazing. Yesterday, I think the low was like 74.
That's why I like being up here. It's tough to get into the Christmas feels with that, although these commercials will definitely do that for you.
That is definitely true, yeah. And I can't wait to get into the commercials, but let's talk a little bit just about history of M&Ms. So even though officially they didn't come out till 1941, they actually got the idea, the Mars Company, and it was Forrest Mars Sr. in particular. He got the idea from a candy called Smarties. It was like a British-made candy. Mm-hmm. He saw that during the Spanish Civil War, they would eat them, and that way that it was like a little quick boost of energy because it was chocolate. But this way, that candy shell kind of helped prevent it from melting. So he immediately brought it home, started working on some things, and in 1941 obtained a patent to do this hard panning. That's what they call it. And it's a particular way where they make a syrup that envelops the actual product, whether it's chocolate or a nut or anything, and then it dries. And you can have a soft panning or a hard panning. So a soft panning would be something like a jelly bean, whereas the hard panning is the M&M. It's literally like just a little thin coating of sugar that's hardened, which I thought was kind of cool. And so it was that coating that helped prevent it from melting really fast. And so they lasted longer. The soldiers could eat it and things like that. And so when they first came out during World War II, because it was, in the 40s, it was exclusively sold to the United States Army, which, nowadays you think about like, what? That doesn't happen. And no way. But back then it was, they saw what it did to the other army. And so they thought, okay, we'll do it. We'll do that too. So it was exclusively sold to the army. And then eventually there was such a demand that they decided to go ahead and mass produce it and allow everyone else to do it.
With the army too. I mean, at that time it was during almost World War II when it was coming out. And so, I mean, obviously they're in demand to get something to the troops. So that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So they had to expand from, New Jersey and Tennessee factories. And from there in 1949, because now it was open to the public, in order to get people to buy it, they had to come up with a tagline. And that's where we get the melts in your mouth, not in your hand tagline, which pretty much has endured.
Yeah, it's still to this day. But obviously they haven't had like 5-year-old kids hang on to them for like 5 minutes in a closed fist. So to prove that theory wrong, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, it is correct, because if you don't have it in an enclosed, sweaty little palm, they don't melt that easily.
No, they don't, which is, it's really quite a good feature. And that's kind of one of the reasons I always like the M&Ms. The only other time I've really seen them melt without someone, gripping it tight in their fist was when I left it like all day in my car in the summertime. So
summertime in Texas in a car, anything's gonna melt.
Everything will melt. Yes, yeah. People melt when you get inside.
You could have a 3-inch slag of steel and it'll be melted. You leave it in the car in Texas for an hour.
It's true story. Yeah. But yeah, so in 1950 they started printing the M on it, and it was black originally, which again I didn't know. And then in 54 they changed it to white. But in 54 was when they came out with their peanut M&M. And yeah, that was their big seller, and that was originally tan, as far as I know. And then of course we get a few other things throughout the decades, but it really wasn't until the 70s that we hear like the big thing. And in the 70s, especially 76, there was like a big scare about red dye number 2. And there's a reason I'm going down this long rabbit hole about M&M history, and it's red dye number 2. They considered it carcinogenic, and so anything associated with it was pulled. And apparently M&Ms, Mars actually didn't use red dye number 2 on their red M&Ms, but they didn't want to be associated with it. So they pulled the color red from their lineup.
Yeah,
so
because even if they don't use it, the public's still going to see, oh, it's red coloring. It's got to be that red dye number 2.
That's exactly right. They didn't want to have it by association. So for nearly a decade, it wasn't until 86 that we first start to hear, 85 or 86, depending on who you believe, where they decided to do the holidays chocolates, which were M&Ms, but instead of an M on it, it had, as I mentioned, the Christmas tree and the candy cane. I think there was even a stocking on later on, but it was all that kind of sparked renewal of it. And there's this one gentleman here, they call him the torchbearer, Paul Hethman. He was at college, and so it was 1982, and so he started essentially a petition to bring back M&Ms, and he kind of got the ball rolling, and it was largely because of him and his whole movement that they brought back that red. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Just some guys wanted the red back.
Yep, that's back before the days of the internet too. So I mean, that's a pretty big movement. You can get a big company to do that when you don't have social media around where you can actually talk to big companies halfway across the world in 2 seconds.
You're right. When you think about it like that, I mean, it really is quite a feat. And then eventually they got a call on January 9th, 1987, that officially M&Ms were going to be produced in the regular packages again, the red M&Ms. And so by this time, of course, they realized the red dye number 2 was not carcinogenic. And so it was okay to bring it back. And, a lot of that was just because of that gentleman right there. So yeah, that's a kind of a crazy feat to be able to say, yeah, I did it. And so, they called him to right away. He wanted his red M&M. So he called up the company and they sent him 50 pounds worth of red M&Ms.
Wow. Diabetes in a bag.
there you go. Wilford Brimley.
And the funny thing is I was born in 73, dating myself as always. And I don't ever remember a time without red M&Ms. I guess my long-term memory is just that bad, or I just ate them so fast I didn't even realize there was no red M&Ms in them.
Right. Well, I remember there used to be tan.
Yeah, I do remember the tan ones.
Mm-hmm. And so the tan kind of disappeared when the blue came out.
Okay. And then the blue disappeared for a little while, didn't it?
Well, there was also a dark brown one that that has kind of been off and on as well. So, yeah, and of course now they have all sorts of colors, all sorts of flavors. So one of the things I really like, and we'll get into the commercials in a bit, but one of the things I really like is all the new flavors for each holiday. So for Halloween, they'll do like a candy corn flavor, which was with white chocolate. It was very sweet. But I like it. Yeah,
I'm not a huge candy corn. I like that. We saw on Discord somebody said they like it with like nuts or something. I don't mind like peanuts and candy corn. That I do like because you get the saltiness.
The salty and sweet, yeah, it tempers it.
The candy corn, I think I ate too much of it as a kid and I can't stand it anymore.
No, that I definitely understand. I really do like candy corn because my grandpa, before he passed away, he used to take me to the store and he would always have a bowl of candy corn there for me. So whether we walked and got it or if we were just visiting, he got it beforehand, there was always a bowl of candy corn. So for me, it kind of holds that special place because he passed away when I was 4 as well.
Yeah, that pretty big nostalgia for something like that.
Exactly.
I can understand that.
Exactly. But yeah, they have I think this last Halloween, they had it was almost like a Cocoa Krispies kind of texture inside, almost like a Nestle Crunch.
Oh, okay. Inside. Yeah, I think I might have had something like that once.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I actually quite enjoyed it.
And then we just recently found, what was it, like a cookies and cream M&M.
Yep.
I've had those. Those are dangerous.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, there was the one that I really liked was the pumpkin spice one or pumpkin pie one. I don't remember if it was pumpkin spice or pumpkin pie.
I'm not brave enough to try. I'm very particular about pumpkin. I mean, I can eat pumpkin bars, but I'm not a huge big pumpkin spice fan. That might get me added at quite a bit. But
I gotcha. Yeah, for me, I didn't mind it. If it's new flavor of M&Ms, I want to try it. So I've tried just about all of them. They had a great one like 5 or 6 years ago. It was a hot chocolate one.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was good.
See, now they
That
have a
was good.
hot cocoa one, which has white chocolate and milk chocolate.
Ooh,
And the other one didn't. It was just it was kind of spiced with I think a little bit of cinnamon. Although they also do have cinnamon M&Ms, which think are amazing. But
cinnamon M&Ms.
yeah, those are really good. Surprisingly good.
Okay, I'm not a huge cinnamon fan, so I don't know.
Well, then they also, of course, have the holiday mint, the white
Hmm.
chocolate peppermint, and all sorts of Christmas and themed. Like each holiday kind of has its own new flavor, and
Right.
I just enjoy. As soon as I see it at Target or Walmart, I gotta buy a bag, and normally I'll have a few just to kind of get the feel for it, and then we'll make cookies with the rest. Some of them work really well, some of them not so much.
Yeah, I'm sure the pumpkin spice one, you got to find the right cookie for that to mix in pretty well.
It was, yeah, we tried it. We liked the M&M. We didn't really like it in the cookies. So then my wife actually added some pumpkin spice to the recipe, and it actually made it quite tasty after that. So that made
It's
it work. We just kind of
got to be
leaned
the
into
right
it.
cookie.
Yeah, exactly. We just kind of leaned into it a little hard. But yeah, it's one of those where each time they come out with a new flavor, I have to try it right away.
Yeah, I'm not so adventurous with that. I'm old school that way, and keep me with my chocolate. I mean, I like the peanut butter M&Ms. I mean,
Oh, those are good.
those are dangerous for me. But I haven't tried like the hazelnut. I'm not too adventurous outside of like the peanut butter, and the regular M&M. Although the cookies and cream one, that was a really good one.
Yeah, they have all sorts of flavors. The nowadays the crispy M&M that was kind of run as a promotion,
Hmm.
and
I
now they
remember
brought
that.
it back permanently. So that one's there. The pretzel M&Ms are pretty good. That kind of has that salty sweet combo.
Yeah, I'm hit and miss with pretzels. I mean, I do like my wife's reindeer noses that I talked about earlier,
Hmm.
with the Hershey's Hug, and then the M&M on top. But you know, pretzels and the chocolate, it's hit and miss with me.
Well, I will admit I'm a big chocoholic. My family come from a long line of sweet tooths or sweet teeth, I guess. And so yeah, I love the chocolate covered pretzels and things like that. So when they had the pretzel M&M, I kind of jumped at that. There was the almond one, and I know my aunt is a big fan of almonds, so she would eat those. My mom loves the peanut M&Ms. She could eat those like all the time if she could. So it's one of those where in our family we were kind of split down the middle pretty much with peanut. Half were peanut, half were the plain. Although now they changed the name to milk chocolate, but back in
Right.
the day they were called
It was
plain.
plain. Yep. Plain M&Ms.
Yeah, I'm plain. I like the plain.
I'm a plain person too. Pretty
But that's okay.
pretty vanilla.
There you go. Pretty chocolate, I guess.
Well, you could say that too.
But what about these commercials? Do you remember these commercials quite a bit?
I I I didn't when I just saw the link and saw the picture of it, but once the music started playing and then I see the pictures actually roll through instead of a still, yeah, I remember seeing these in between specials like Garfield's Christmas special and the Peanuts special, Charlie Brown Christmas, and all those, and just watching like even like Rudolph and all them. The thing I regret the most is I would videotape those specials for videotape, and then I pause on the commercials because being young and dumb,
Oh yeah.
I didn't want the commercials in there. I didn't want to have to fast forward. But man, those commercials, like I went down a rabbit hole with these commercials here, and like I said, found those hour long commercials for Christmas, and it's like brought back all the feels, all the memories, all the great times of Christmas, and just sitting down watching with my brother and my dad and my mom, just watching Christmas specials with the tree on, and also remembering that if you had to go to the bathroom, you waited for a commercial
Yes.
and then run back, and hopefully you didn't miss a good commercial in the meantime. Well, when you're a kid, you don't care about the commercials, but they do tend to stick with you.
They do. You're right. You're right. So the orange color was introduced in '76, and in 1980 that's when they introduced the M&Ms to Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, a lot of Europe, Hong Kong, Japan. So, I mean, it was like a huge market. So they changed their slogan, although they still kept the melt in your mouth, not in your hands as part of it. But they started emphasizing a new slogan, which was "All the world loves M&Ms," and that's what a lot of those commercials were. Those early ones.
Right. Those were the ones that that you sent me there. All the world loves M&Ms. They had the 60-second and the 30-second commercial with that.
That's right. Yeah. So these were shot in '82. And apparently, and I didn't even know that there was a 60-second one. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. But
like I said, it's a rabbit hole.
But yeah, it's literally just they're singing the song, and it's do 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 do. And of course they get into the melody. All the world loves M&Ms, and so on and so on. But it's a lot of images of Christmas, and everything I see about it is very Christmassy. There's the little children there around the tree, and it's a beautiful tree with the warm white colors,
and you get the sleigh, the horse-drawn sleigh coming up to the house. The kids all around the tree, snuggling with their moms and snacking on M&Ms, and yeah, it's just those warm Christmas feels. The old nostalgic of how family Christmas is, which in reality never really happens that way, but it's what everybody thinks of with Christmas. And that just even holding those images in your heart, even though it doesn't happen for you, that's what makes Christmas so special too. You're
right. And in between all of that family time, you'll see the bag of M&Ms being poured into someone's hand. And but the horse-drawn carriage I really liked, or I guess it's a sleigh. I really enjoyed it because like the edges are outlined in lights as well. Yep. And so that's something, being of course from Texas, we don't really have the sleigh being pulled by a horse in the snow. So the most we have is like a hayride type thing. So it's really not it's something kind of foreign, something that we always dream of, but we don't really experience. And so to see that with the lights around it, and then knowing that it's cold and it's just something you can snuggle up with a blanket, it makes it even more special. And so to me, it's one of those like, wow, that's Christmas. Just like you mentioned, it's one of those things that never really happens, but that's kind of what you imagine. Yeah, even up here with the snow, up here in Wisconsin, I've yet to see a sleigh drawn by horses. One place we used to get our live Christmas trees at used to have like a hayride. It would be a horse drawing a trailer that you sit in, but it's not a sleigh. It's they're on wheels and stuff like that. So I've never been on a actual sleigh drawn by a horse, but yeah, like I said, those are your images, a horse drawn sleigh. You got songs about it, like would you say it's a one horse open sleigh?
Yeah, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, knew we're gonna get there eventually.
There you go.
So, but yeah, those are the images that between songs and nostalgia and somebody, mainly songs, because songs seems to always leave an imprint on your mind. Same thing with these commercials. It's those songs. That's what brought me back. Oh yeah, I remember these commercials. Those images are brought back by the song. That's what set those imprints and creates that nostalgia. Even if you don't necessarily have experienced it live, it's just the images relations, even on a video you see, that bring those about.
Yes, exactly. And same thing. I didn't remember really the actual images, but as soon as I heard the song, I knew it, and it brought me back to sitting and like you said, watching the Christmas special, and this was one of the commercials that was played, or sometimes when my parents would watch their TV shows like Trapper John and things like that.
Oh, Trapper John, I forgot about that show.
Yeah, it's like,
you bring back everything for me with your podcast. This is great. It's like, oh yeah, I was a teenager in the 80s, but still those hit home for me. So, because I don't remember much before 1980 personally, really.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But, they would watch those, moonlighting, and every time they would have, of course, close to Christmas, they would have some of these commercials. And so we even get, of course, the image at the end with Santa flying in his sleigh, which I thought was really nice.
That was on the 60. That wasn't in the 30. In
Right,
the 30 seconds. That was in the 61. So.
That's right. That's in the longer cut. Pretty typical when you think about it. There's usually, you'll see, like in the Super Bowl, you'll see the longer version of it, and then when it's aired after that, there's like a very cut down version of a commercial.
Right. Know? Yep. You get the long commercial, and once the big one goes through, then they usually condense it down to a 30. Mainly, it's because it's cheaper to run a 30 than it is a 60.
That's right. So. Yeah, especially, and of course in the Super Bowl, you know that's like very high, very high traffic there. So of course people are going to be watching it, but you know you never know who's going to be watching what, you know, on every day. So of course you'd just want something less expensive, something shorter, just get your point across. And so it does make sense that there's a 60-second version and a 30-second version of this as well. But yeah, the Santa waving at the end, and then we have the bag of plain and the bag of peanut right underneath, and you know, it's all the world loves M&Ms, and I think it's,
and you get that great announcer voice, which I don't have, that nice baritone, smooth voice that just talks about melts in your mouth, but not in your hand.
Yeah.
Just all those cozy, warm feels.
It really is. And the Santa, I mean, I really like this Santa. I mean, he doesn't really say anything. It's just kind of a show, but his costume, his outfit, I don't know what you call it, but his Santa suit, it looks authentic. He looks authentic. It's not a lot of, I mean, it doesn't look cheap, essentially, which I really enjoyed. So they didn't skimp out on the Santa.
Yeah, but right before that, though, before they show that, it was actually looks almost like a stop motion Santa. Right before
on the sleigh, yeah, I did notice that too.
It looks like it's stop motion. It's either something you'd see from a Rankin Bass, or maybe
like a Will Vinton claymation.
Will Vinton claymation, or they can do the opening for Christmas Vacation. I mean, I know that's animated. I mean, it's kind of got like a mix of all those together.
Yeah, and. You know, it's funny because later on, Will Vinton in the 90s, he ended up doing the computer-generated versions of the M&Ms. So he was responsible for the red and yellow, which most people think of now.
Right.
So I thought that's really
where
cool.
I went.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, when I said M&Ms, I knew of course, we're going to have to talk about it, you know, especially John Lovitz and John Goodman as their original voices. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Of course
they do exist.
That's right. And then of course they changed it so that now it's what's his name? Billy
J.K. Simmons is the voice of
J.K. Simmons is yellow, yeah. It's Billy West and J.K. Simmons. Mm-hmm. And so it's you know, they kind of, I mean, you would think John Goodman to J.K. Simmons is a step down, but you know, J.K. Simmons is an Oscar winner, so
I think I actually think that's a parallel move.
I think so too. They just kind of
John Goodman's got a really good voice. You like him like in Monsters Inc. And there was I think it was a Rudolph remake. It was more of a computer generated that had Wonderful Christmas Time in there.
The toy taker.
Or something like that. And John Goodman was the Santa, I do believe.
Could be. I know he was. Wasn't he in Frosty Returns?
Yes,
the unofficial sequel to.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then you got J.K. Simmons in the new. I think it was last year or 2018. I think it was 2018. Klaus came out, and he portrays Klaus. And I was watching that a few times this year, and J.K. Simmons has a line in there: "One spark of kindness sparks another. An act of kindness sparks another."
Mm-hmm.
And just his voice saying that is just one of those. I love that. I love that line. So I think it was a lateral move to go from John Goodman to J.K. Simmons, really.
I think you're right. Yeah. John Lovitz to Billy West. Well, I think Billy West is a better voice actor than John Lovitz is. John Lovitz is a great comedian. You know, I liked him on Saturday Night Live. I've liked him on his other movies, even though they're mostly terrible.
Yeah. Well, he's more of a visual comedian too.
Yeah,
versus vocal.
You're right. A lot of it's kind of in his expressions and everything as well.
Right.
So at least with Fry, I'm just going to call him Fry. At least with Fry, you get that real seasoned voice actor, so he can emote with just his voice, which I think is a big part of what makes these characters tick, because their facial expressions, you know, are all, of course, animated.
Right. And of course, with motion capture now, I mean, you could probably get John Lovitz to do it and then just put it up on the screen. So who knows?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Man, are we on a tangent?
It's not a podcast if you don't go on a tangent.
Like I said, this whole thing's a rabbit hole, and we've been hitting them tonight.
We have, but it's been fun because they all still kind of relate.
Oh, yeah.
The next one that I really enjoyed was with the little girl, 87, that era.
Yep.
And so, again, depending on which version you clicked on, it's either from 86 or 87. And it's got the little girl sitting on Santa's lap, and it's all about the holidays chocolates. And so literally it's just an M&M, but instead of an M on it, it has the Christmas tree or the little other Christmas symbol. So it's not like it's anything different, but they were marketing it as holidays chocolates. And so they came out with them at Christmas, and then eventually they came out for Easter.
Yeah, in the whole commercial too, you don't hear them say M&Ms. It's always holidays chocolates, chocolates. But near the end there, they do show the bag. You can see an M&M up on the bag, which is how you know it's M&M. But I mean, when I first saw this on replay now, I'm like, okay, are sure those M&Ms? And then I had to watch it a few times. Okay, there's the M&M on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's the internet. It's the internet. Like Abraham Lincoln said, you can trust anything on the internet is real.
He did say that. That's true. Yeah. I saw it on the internet. It must be true.
Exactly.
So
those actually were M&Ms, and I actually remember having those M&Ms during Christmas too. In that time, I would have been 14 at the time. So
I remember them too, because that's when my mom, instead of just making regular M&M cookies, she started making them with those particular ones. So it was only red and green. It had the special Christmas logo on it, and it felt special because it was all about Christmas. And at that time, this was still, when they first came out, it was before we started making M&Ms for every holiday. It was really just the M&M cookies for Christmas. So now it was even more special because it really got the Christmas things in there, so that the iconography was just, it abounded.
I don't think they packaged them like that anymore. I think it's just that you can get just a red and green M&M in a package, but they have the M's on them. They don't have those little decals.
That's
if I'm
true.
not mistaken. So that's kind of sad. I mean, it would be nice to have those little decals back on. I mean, you can get just red and green M&Ms at Christmas. I mean, they still do that type of packaging. They just don't put they just put the M on there instead of the holiday print.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It is a little disappointing because it was something kind of exciting about seeing the special logo on it, and it's just now they're regular M&Ms, but it's still cool. They're still red and green, so they're still
like I said,
or red, green, and white, depending on which one you go with.
Yeah, depending upon the flavor too. So, you can get. So I mean, you still get it packaged together. Where in a normal package of M&Ms, you have at least 4 different colors. So
that's true. Mm-hmm. And so I really like that in this commercial, it's a little girl. She's sitting on Santa's lap. And she says, "My mom got these, and everybody ate them, but I saved a bag for you." And, so I really like that. And of course, she's pouring it. She's got this big old bag in her hand. I mean, it's very unrealistic, but as a commercial, I think it works because it's very cute. She's got to be like 4 or 5, and then she pours,
maybe 6.
Maybe 6, yeah. And she, Santa holds out his hand and she pours the M&Ms into his glove. And then we get this.
Yeah, and just the right amount so it doesn't pour over from that big bag.
Yeah, that's very realistic from a 5-year-old.
Exactly. Yeah, because they wouldn't dump a whole thing all over the place, and then you're picking up M&Ms.
Yeah, they wouldn't be melting in your lap or anything.
Yeah, just don't forget to throw out the W's. That's all.
You can do that, but depending, it might take you a while to find them all, or the 3s or the E's.
Something like anything, if it doesn't say M, you got to throw it out.
You got to throw it out, yeah. I usually would throw it out into my mouth.
10-second rule.
There you go. But, then you get this nice, I mean, it's kind of odd because instead of coming out of a bag, they're actually being dropped. It's a great image. It's just like a black screen, and the M&Ms, the red and green, are being dropped into the bag. So it's like filling the bag. So it is kind of different. Of course, it's slow motion. And then we get
they're going from the chocolate to getting their covering on it.
Yeah, which that's kind of cool. So I guess in this case it's just about like the process, and yeah, there's still the M&Ms. Here's their coating, kind of a
Yep,
thing.
and it's just red and green. It's the holiday. It's the holiday candies.
The
So
holidays candies. That's exactly the holidays chocolates. But then we get to the cutest gag, which is, she said, now
I
let's
got
talk.
this little list here.
Yeah, it's
3 miles
like a
long.
scroll. It's like an
Yep.
ancient scroll that she unwinds, and it just keeps going and going and going.
And then on Discord, I know they were talking about this. Was it no? Or I think it was on Facebook. They said, "No, just do what Lucy did. It sends 10s and 20s."
Yeah, yes, they did mention that. Yeah, and we'll be getting into all that as well. I can't wait. I want to read what some of the listeners have said about it because it was kind of exciting to see the response. There was quite a few.
Oh yeah, that was some really neat responses.
There sure were, yeah. And of course, at the very end, we get, and it's staged very well. We get the bowl. It's always that clear dish full of the red and green, and then it says M&Ms, holidays, chocolates, on a nice wooden surface because it was the 80s. If
With a nice holly leaf and holly berries.
That's exactly right. And then at the very bottom, the tagline.
There's nothing like the holidays for your holidays. There's nothing like holidays.
Nothing like holidays for your holidays. Yes.
Yep.
So clever. I mean, they had a great marketing team, and they really have. If you think about it, throughout their run, because they had in the 60s they had the black and white characters, but it was still just the peanut and the plane. So that's like their flagship characters, I guess, their main guys.
Yeah, you got the peanut plane. I mean, they have that today too with red and yellow.
Red and yellow. Yep.
And I saw going down that rabbit hole. I saw a commercial for just a regular commercial for M&Ms that was actually a hand drawing one.
Yes,
cartoon.
2Ds. Yep. Cell animation.
Yep. In one, it's like the peanut woke up. It was just the peanut without the chocolate or the coating. Dove into a pool. And there was no chocolate, and then there was no coating, and he wakes up. So, I mean, that's like really vintage M&M commercials there.
Mm-hmm. I did see that one too. And then we kind of get to, again, there's a lot of commercials, and we'll talk about it all. But in the 80s, there was another one that I really remember where they, grab onto that M&M feeling. That was like the theme. So this one was from 1987, but a lot of the images were from that earlier, 82, 83 era is what I noticed. And I kind of enjoyed that because it's nostalgic. And in fact, you'll still see commercials doing that. So like they'll do the Hershey's Kiss, the Bells commercial. They'll still run the Campbell soup, the snowman that melts and it's a little kid commercial. So they still kind of do that kind of a thing where they'll take the earlier commercial and play it.
Now, these days though, they don't replace the background music. Usually they just regurgitate the song and bring it back because a lot of it is the nostalgia and people are liking it and they get a good response. I'm sure otherwise they wouldn't re-air the commercials if they didn't get a good response for people purchasing. So, but yeah, this is the first time I've seen where they've, that I can remember that they just changed the background song actually is what it was. So.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They just changed the soundtrack because none of these had any words. It was just, the song and then maybe an announcer saying, a voiceover guy just saying a couple of things here and there. But one thing that I really liked about this one is that you get the classic 80s looks. So they're pouring the M&Ms into, the bowl, but at the same time, you have the kids wearing those big sweaters and the little girls have the frilly dresses,
frilly nightgowns with the bows in their hair.
That's right. Yeah. It reminded me of the 80s. Their haircuts were the same thing. They had the longer kind of bob hair.
Yeah, with the bangs, and then you got the kids in the one piece long johns.
Long johns, yep. And
the red colored long johns.
And that's the other thing. A lot of their outfits were very holiday themed, like red and green and things like that. And so it's kind of like Home Alone. The set designer, the production designer, he really didn't know a lot about, or he really wasn't into Christmas that much, but he knew that Christmas was red and green. And so he kind of designed the entire McAllister house with red and green colors. And so they kind of do that in this commercial as well. It's very red, very green, a lot of those M&M kind of tones, which I thought was really cool.
Right. And you get another classic Christmas image of a roaring fire in the background.
Mm-hmm. And I think one kid's even decorating, hanging an ornament on the tree, so he's trimming the tree. I mean, it really is a mini, oh gosh, like a microcosm. It really is a microcosm of Christmas. Just every kind of Christmas imagery you can think of is kind of thrown in there, plus M&Ms.
Plus, you got the M&Ms sharing in there. You got to get the product in there, otherwise you don't know what you're.
That's exactly right.
Promoting.
And we get the chocolate being poured, and I think this one ends as well with that sleigh.
Yep, it's a different sleigh than the first one because it's going in that. Yeah. In the other one, it's coming towards you and it's lighter out. You can see more of the snow. Where this one's darker, it's going away. So it's a different image, but it's a horse-drawn sleigh with the lights around it. I was going to say, yeah, that ending one you probably like pretty well because you said you like that horse-drawn sleigh.
I do. One of these days, hopefully, God willing, before I pass, I would like to at least one time ride in a one-horse open sleigh, just to say I did it.
Well, you have to come up and join me, and we can find it together and do that. And
there we go. That'll be fun for sure. We'll get maybe we'll have a big Christmas podcast host party, and we'll all just go riding in sleighs and Christmas caroling, and something.
There you go.
That could be fun.
I think we can go. I think Chris, isn't it Chris from Yuletide TV? That's in Colorado. I mean, that'd be a perfect place to do it. Really.
That's true. Yeah, definitely not here.
No, I'm gonna. You could do it up here, but
I better start saving because I'm definitely going to have to travel. Oh man, this was a great commercial. I really enjoyed all of these. It brought me back to sitting on my couch watching TV, and it was the '80s, so it was that classic, that orange floral pattern couch. It was kind of like a tan and orange kind of thing with leaves and flowers and stuff like that. I think everybody had that couch.
If your parents didn't have it, your grandparents had it.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, someone had it for sure. And
for me, it was my grandparents.
There you go. Yeah, and I just remember sitting on that couch, watching TV, or sometimes my mom would throw out like a colcha, what's it called, a blanket, comforter, or something on the floor, and we'd bring out pillows. What's that?
An Afghan?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And we would just throw our pillows down there, and we would just kind of lay down and watch TV. And, it was one of those, especially for Charlie Brown or the Grinch or Rudolph or any of those, we just run and kind of, like you said, you go when you can during the commercials, you hear the, it's on, and you run as fast as you can and try to make it so you don't miss anything.
Leaping over furniture as you go and knocking over lamps and getting the death glare from your mom. So
there might have been a little bit of that here and there. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Not me.
And then, of course, later on, Will Vinton, as I mentioned, the claymation guy, he really started getting into the computer stuff later on, and he came out with those in the 90s with the red and yellow. They hear something downstairs, and it's Santa, and
he does exist. They do exist.
And they all faint, that kind of thing. And then they did
just red and Santa because it's yellow.
Oh, yellow does it. You're right. Santa? You're right. You're right.
Dan, he could just go Santa.
But then they did a sequel commercial.
I was just gonna talk about that.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, they made a sequel where the commercial actually starts with that ending scene.
Yes.
You see the shadow of Santa fainting, and you see yellow there going Santa. And then you saw the presents, must save Christmas or whatever to that effect. And he gets in the sleigh and just starts with the list, starts knocking presents down, and they just dropping on cars, dropping on porches, going all over the place. And then they cut to the North Pole, which I found interesting. It was a neat take on the North Pole. Mm-hmm. And Santa comes to, and he gets a call. It must be about the time of cell phones getting pretty popular because Santa had a cell phone. Mm-hmm. And he said that the presents got to all the wrong houses. And then, of course, Yellow, he's always portrayed as the bumbling buffoon. And you hear him just in his low-pitched voice, oh, did I mess up Christmas? And then in a really sweet note, because Red's always given Yellow a hard time.
He is.
Always basically calling out his errors and stuff. And really sweet change of pace. Red says, no, buddy, I think you actually created something good. Because it's everybody coming out and swapping their gifts with everybody else. Who's it supposed to be for?
Yeah.
Because they show people going like this old man getting a pair of stiletto heels. So people are getting the wrong ones.
Yeah.
But then you got people coming out, and that was the part of it is just. And I don't have that commercial up right now. I forgot what the tagline was in that, but it was just something special about actually coming out and visiting others and enjoying others' company on Christmas. And that turned out to be a really special, really sweet ending to that commercial, especially with the way red and yellow normally bicker and banter back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and red, yeah, you're right. He's more the sarcastic one. Yellow is kind of, like you said, a buffoon. I think I just call him more naive and innocent, but definitely not quite all, I don't know. I guess he's a few bricks shy of a load is what you'd say here in the South, but not really, because he's actually kind of a smart guy. He's
except when he tries to gets the brownie into the M&M, and the more recent commercials where he's trying to get the brownie in the M&M. That's more recent, so
yeah, you're right.
That's kind of, I think that's kind of why I label him as like a buffoon, a lovable buffoon. I mean, and it's not that he's a complete idiot. It's just he just goes about things in his own weird way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But on that note, let me read some of these comments here, because I put it out there on Facebook and several social media to see what some of our listeners would say. And so Anthony from Tis a Podcast said, I love the M&Ms, the candy, the Christmas commercials, and the brand. Given how Hollywood has transformed everything into movies, I'm surprised the M&Ms haven't gotten one, since red and yellow M&Ms in particular are iconic. And he said, as far as Christmas goes, I love when they bring out the red and green only M&M bags. And the original He Does Exist, They Do Exist commercial is as iconic to me as the Hershey's Bells.
The Hershey's Bells, there's another one. Iconic, like he said. I mean, whenever you see commercial, the Hershey's little things come on, you always think in the bells, even if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I mentioned that one, the Campbell's soup one. I mean, those are classics that, it's almost like it's not Christmas if you don't get to see them every year.
Right, exactly. I mean, when they stopped running them, and you kind of go, I kind of miss that. So,
yeah, you're right. Another totally rad Christmas all-star, Vinny Brzezinski, said, the M&Ms and the Hershey's Kiss Bells get me pumped for Christmas. Both classics. And let's see, Mike Westfall, he pointed to that 1987 one that we talked about, the grab on to the M&M's feeling. As his M&M's commercial.
Yep. He posted that, and I'm like, oh, yeah, Jerry already sent me that one. I heard about that one.
Oh, man. Yeah, there's Adam from Merry Britsmas said, for a while, my go-to pre-lecture breakfast was a can of cherry Coke and a packet of M&Ms. It's, that's actually what I used to eat as well. Like whenever I'd go to the theater or not theater, the movies, I'd always have a cherry Coke, sometimes just regular Coke, but cherry Coke generally, and M&Ms. I mean,
that's a lot of sweetness. Ooh.
It's very sweet, yeah. But like I said, I have a pretty good pancreas, I guess.
You don't have diabetes yet?
Not as far as I know, and I hope we can keep it that way.
No kidding.
Tim Babb from I Can't Wait for Christmas says, I love that Oscar winner J.K. Simmons still does the voice for one of those M&Ms, which is true. You think some people would be, that, hey, wow, I'm too big for this. But no, he kind of
he does that,
and I like that.
He does the farmer's insurance.
That's true. He does.
J.K. Simmons does. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. So he's not above a whole lot. So
right. And then Wendy Sizemore mentioned that, I'm just going to read two more. So Wendy Sizemore says, I know they were M&Ms with a different name on them, and maybe it's just me feeling nostalgic and all, but I really do miss the holidays chocolate candies. Yes, they were M&Ms with a different name. Maybe it's because when I was a kid, I wasn't a big chocolate fan, so I wasn't too big on M&Ms, but there was something, I guess, magical about these since they were specifically for the holidays.
Magical is the exact word for those M&Ms, especially these commercials.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what else I'd call it. And then finally, Benji Pearson, he messaged me and he said that he collected M&Ms as a kid. He had loads of signs, containers, and figures. His parents even let him have an M&M Christmas tree in the TV room one year. And for his 10th birthday, they surprised him with some M&M bed sheets and a whole blanket set and everything. And so to make it like a special, like a bigger surprise, they let him fall asleep in the living room. And she went and made the bed secretly. And then after he fell asleep, they took him to his room. And when he woke up, he noticed something was different. And he couldn't quite put his finger on it. So he turned the light on, and then he saw him, and he kept him all the way until he was a teenager. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And then there's on that Facebook group, there was that Paul Cranage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm butchering his name, and I apologize. He's the one that when they say with that girl with the list,
mm-hmm.
that said he needs to go with Sally's.
Oh yeah.
send 10s and 20s.
Sally had it right, I'm telling you.
Yep. And he Paul also agreed with me about that rabbit hole that I had mentioned too. I mean, these things will get you down a rabbit hole. He talked about some of the alcohol commercials, which you don't see a whole lot anymore. Not even Budweiser, because Budweiser always had those Clydesdales.
The Clydesdales, yep. Mm-hmm.
You don't see that anymore really either, which the Clydesdales used to be huge, especially at Christmas time.
Yeah, and really the only time I remember seeing them now is during the Super Bowl.
Exactly. And that's sad because those were great.
But so I guess at this point, I just want to say a couple more things before we go on to my usual bits here. But I just thought it was really cool that over 400 million M&Ms are produced each day.
Diabetes.
That is probably true, but
it's a good thing
not to focus on that.
That I have to say that with the disclaimer. That's diabetes only if one person eats all 400 million.
That is true. Yes.
So if you do it reasonably, you're not going to get.
You'll be okay. Yeah.
Yep.
In '82, M&Ms were actually taken into space, and they've been on every single space shuttle mission since, which I thought was really cool.
That is an interesting fact.
Right? And let's see, Green debuted in '97. Of course, there was that whole bit. I remember M&Ms, they kind of leaned into it because it was an urban legend that the green M&Ms were kind of an aphrodisiac.
Yes,
so
I remember that.
They kind of leaned into it a little bit on some of those commercials there.
Well, they made her a female and more of a sexy type female.
That's true, yeah.
You get down to the rabbit hole I just thought of too is Christina Applegate's commercial where you hear red and yellow going back and forth, and she just don't make me come back there and eat you or whatever because they're in the chocolate. They have those chocolate bars now. With
the chocolate bar, yeah, with the M&Ms in them, yeah.
So, and then you just see the two faces like, oh, Lord.
And then in 2002, purple was chosen from 200 different countries. They all voted, and purple was the one that was chosen. So the purple color joined. So, it's one of those where, I mean, there's M&M's World in Times Square, which I thought was kind of cool. The dark chocolate has always been another one of my favorites. Because it's a little more bitter, so it's not as sweet. Those ones make amazing cookies, by the way.
Yeah, what was I listening to? Was it Christmas Clatter or was it Seasons Eve? I can't remember, but they were talking about special recipes that they would have, and they'd have to go get a special recipe, and it just turned out to be what's ever on the Carol syrup.
Oh, well, I know they do that in Friends. There's an episode of Friends where they do that.
Yeah, but I can't remember which podcast just recently was talking about that. That's why it triggered my memory. I just heard it recently. I listened to too many to try to sort them out. I mean, too many good episodes, many good podcasts out there.
That is what your podcast is all about, right?
Right. Which is why I usually have everything written down so I can keep them straight. When I don't have them written down like now, it's like, okay, what was that about? I forgot.
Yeah, I hear you. And then just one thing that I thought was really cool, which really it's not really trivia at all, but that a lot of Harry Potter fans called the butterscotch because it was a Halloween flavor. So, boo, butterscotch, butterscotch.
Ah.
The butterscotch, the Harry Potter fans call it butterbeer M&Ms. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, butterbeer. I mean, my wife made some butterbeer that she found a recipe online. It wasn't too bad, really.
Oh, nice. It's one thing that I always want to try. I don't know if there's an official recipe. I know
I think there is,
cookbook,
and
but
I
I don't
think
know
you
if it's
can
how
get that
official
like
it
in
is.
Orlando, Florida, at the Harry Potter universe in
Oh,
Orlando.
nice. I'll have to
I
try
think they
it.
have that there, but I've never been there. So
Yeah, same
obviously,
here.
I'm not going anytime soon.
That's very true, yeah. But I gotta ask, like, what would you say, if you could, would be your happiest memory, or a moment of these commercials, or just happiest memory of M&Ms in general?
Well, the happiest memory of M&Ms in general, it relates to Christmas, is just the morning getting up at. Me personally, well, now that I'm older, it's not so much true, but I used to love sleeping, and I'd sleep into like 10, 11, 12, 1 p.m.
Oh, wow.
and stay up late. And I'd stay up late because I'm just normally a night owl. But as I get older, of course, that's changing. But Christmas, all bets were off, and that I was up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning,
Oh, yeah.
and much to the chagrin of my parents, and a lot of go back to bed for another hour. And then sitting there watching that clock for an hour, watching your watch for an hour. Come on, let's get it to this time. So 6 a.m. comes around, I can get up. But at 6 a.m., my parents would let me look at my stocking, and that's where I had that candy cane of M&Ms. And you'd sit there, go through your stocking, chewing on some M&Ms, and or have M&Ms here and there while you're opening presents and stuff. And so it's been a staple for me for Christmas to have M&Ms. So that my happiest moment is just sitting there with the family, just on Christmas morning.
Nice. That's a good one. Yeah, same here. It's kind of the same thing. We would have, like, every time we would do anything like mega Christmassy, so like decorating the tree on Christmas Eve, opening presents on Christmas morning, we would always have my mom's, Mexican hot chocolate and some M&M cookies. So it was like we couldn't do one thing without any of them. We had to have all of them together. And so for me, it's always about being with my brothers, my mom and my dad, our dog running around, and putting on, of course, the Time Life Treasure of Christmas music, and then having those M&M cookies, and of course we drink the hot chocolate with it too, which again was a lot of sugar, but at the same time,
no wonder why we couldn't sleep on Christmas.
We were all
jacked up on sugar.
That's exactly right. But yeah, that's like the best memory I have of Christmas. And so to this day, we have to have M&M cookies and hot chocolate when we have our Christmas. So it's one of those things that now my kids will grow up with, and I really dig that.
Mm-hmm. And it's spanned from, well, at least the 1940s to now, and it really hasn't gone out of style. I mean, things have changed how they advertise them. I mean, obviously the commercials are changed with the technologies and stuff, but overall the feel of M&Ms and Christmas is still as big today as it was when they first started doing that.
I agree, but that brings me to my favorite part of the podcast, which is a little segment I like to call To the Max.
To the max!
So this is where we do our best impression of one of our favorite parts of in this case, the commercials. And so
this is gonna be tough because commercials, a lot of these are singing. I don't sing, and otherwise there's a lot of video in there. And on an audio podcast, it's hard to do video.
That's very true. We might try it anyway, and then you guys can still vote. But
okay,
no, I'm just kidding. But
really get the people going away once they see my mug on podcast. So.
No, they wouldn't see it. We would just be doing the visuals on the audio podcast.
And let's let them imagine what it is.
That's exactly right, yeah.
It's like charades for audio.
All right, one word, 2 syllables. No, but so, just try your best to pick something that you really enjoyed, and what we'll do is we'll put it up to the listeners to vote, just kind of set up the scene for us, and, the winner will get the new Totally Rad Christmas sticker, which is coming out, since I'm assuming by this time you have already won your episode, since it hasn't aired yet, or I guess it will have aired by now. So you'll probably be getting a new sticker with this one.
So, the scene, what I'm picking for the To the Max is that holidays candy one with the little girl on Santa's lap, and at near the end there, after she sweetens Santa up with the candy, and here's my list. Boom, there comes Mile Long Christmas list. I mean, every little kid has got that. I mean, it's so funny. It's timed perfectly, and then you get Santa after that. She still sweetens the pot with some more candy in his hand, and that just gets me every time. That's just to the max to me for Christmas for little kids.
Nice, right on. Yeah, for me, it was kind of the same. It was from that same one. It was the announcer, and he says, "Holidays chocolates, delicious milk chocolate in red and green shells."
Yeah, you might have to change jobs here.
No, I don't. But I liked it because it's one of those things that you find in commercials where they just tell you exactly what it is. And it reminded me, the reason I liked this particular one was because it reminded me of the Muppets Take Manhattan when they're trying to come up with taglines for their Ocean Breeze soap, and Kermit the Frog, they're trying all these other things, and he's, at this point he has lost his memory, and he says, why don't how about Ocean Breeze soap will get you clean? And
yep.
So then they say, we never thought of just saying what the product does. so that's why I like this one, because it's literally is just what the product is: delicious milk chocolate in red and green shells.
That's a good one too.
Oh man! But now I do for sure have to remind you that G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. What would you say is the other half?
The other half is not to squeeze M&Ms in your hand so they melt, so they can do what their taglines used to say, which is melts in your mouth, not in your hand.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely do that. For me, if knowing is half the battle, the other half is sneaking a discontinued product back into production through clever seasonal marketing.
There you go. Or sneaking commercials sneaking commercials back into on-air broadcasts with a different song in the background.
There you go. That's true. This is reused material. Sean, it's been fun going down this rabbit hole of M&M craziness with you. What do you want to plug? Tell me about your show.
Christmas podcasts, besides being redundant in its name, we give the listener basically an overview of podcasts that we host on christmaspodcast.com, which is a website geared to you go there and we have a bunch of podcasts on there, including Totally Rad Christmas, and you can click on their links. You can find the current episodes on our website and listen to them, or you can click on their links and go to their sites and download all the episodes that they have, just to give the listener a wide variety of Christmas podcasts for whatever their liking is, because we have movie reviews, we have comedies, we have overall Christmas, we have genre Christmases like Totally Rad Christmas, the Cozy Christmas, Christmas foods, all that stuff on there. And we just update during the week what episodes have dropped and what those episodes are about, so the listener can listen and say, hey, yeah, I want to listen to that, and go and grab it. And it's just kind of like a one-stop shop for getting their Christmas content fix.
Right on. Very cool. Yeah, check it out. He also usually has an interview. Lately, he's been doing an interview with podcast host. I've been on there, as well as let's see, I believe Seasons Eatings. Glenn has been on there. And
Glenn has been on there, and so has Jack from Total Christmas, and so has Chris and Chris from Christmas Time in the City, Ricky Meese from Sleigh Bells and Mistletoe, and Scott from Jingle Jank. And between you, Scott, and Jack, I mean, I've never
Craig
Tim
too, right?
Craig's been on there, but Craig was really, really fun to talk with. He's got such a different spectrum of Christmas that I never knew was out there until his podcast came out. He was just a great talk. But with you, with Jack, with Tim, and with Scott too, I never laughed as much talking with people as I did with you guys. It's fun that way. Not to say I didn't have any fun with any of the other guys. It was just a different type of fun. You guys, I laughed with. The other guys were informational and Christmas and warm and even weird Christmas. You get the warm fuzzies from him too, even if it is something weird. And it's just every podcaster I've talked to has been phenomenal and great, and it's just been great talking to you guys left and right. And I don't know how to end this.
And check it out.
Everybody's great. So yeah, just check out christmaspodcast.com. I'm also on Twitter. I do retweet a lot from the Christmas podcast. That's at Xander0527. And then you can also find me as eXander on the Merry forums of mymerrychristmas.com too. So I'm all over the place.
Yes. And
of course, I'm not as far all over the place as you are. You get around all over the place.
That's what I hear. I don't know how true that is. I think that's been blown out of proportion, but I think it's a funny bit at this point. So
is there a Christmas podcast that, at least on Discord, you have not been on?
I haven't been on Weird Christmas or Can't Wait for Christmas. I haven't been on Cozy Christmas yet. I mean, there's a few. There's actually more than people. I think just because I've come out on Tis the Podcast so many times now that people think I've been on more podcasts than I actually have.
Well, and then you did that melee.
That was
you
fun.
Judged that melee. So I mean, you do a lot with Todd too, and Todd's another great podcaster there too. And I'm going to be actually judging one of his melees coming up soon too.
Nice.
So that'll be fun.
That's gonna be really fun. Yes.
That Christmas melee one, I never laughed so hard. Listen to you guys, that was great. Of course, when you get Tim on there, and even Mike Westfall, even though Tim's sense of humor and Mike's sense of humor are completely different, the way they play off of each other is just phenomenal.
Yes.
I laughed so hard at those two.
It was hard not to bust out in laughter all the time while I was judging. I literally kind of had to put my hand in front of my mouth like this just to block it because I wanted to laugh at just about everything.
Sorry, Anthony. I forgot about Anthony because Mike and Tim overran him. Well, that's going to get some deductions on me from Anthony. So
I'll cut it out. Don't worry about it.
Oh, it's all in good fun. Anthony would take that and run with it.
I know. He's a good guy. They're all good guys.
Yeah, they're all great guys.
Well, thanks again for coming on. It was a lot
Thanks
of fun.
for having me.
And on that note, I'm going to end it by saying, grab on to that M&Ms feeling because there's nothing like holidays for your holidays. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling like Santa eating a big handful of holidays M&Ms, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now don't forget to vote. Later, dudes.